after one leaves school, one doesn't often know very much about business. It is a learning curve. And so my early days were not exceptional, Joe.
So is it luck?
Well, if I think later on in life when I became a blueberry farmer, it was a kind of reaction from my business before, Joe.
But was it luck or hard work?
Hard work, in the sense that you need luck as well and you need hard work. I left the property business partly because I was doing very well, and I felt that it wasn't satisfying me sufficiently. I didn't feel that I was actually giving anything back to society, and it seemed to be something that was purely money making. So we left the city, we went to the countryside, and we started growing blueberries. The one thing I felt about blueberries, Joe, was blueberries was something that no one could say, hey, that is a bad thing to do, or you're ripping off the world, or you're giving blueberries that are got pesticide on. So these blueberries were organic. They were picked fresh and sold the next day. So I felt, personally, I felt very good about producing these berries. And
what inspired you? Like, how did you come up with the idea?
Well, the idea came as a reaction to being a property developer.
But why not, I don't know, grow alfalfa or cows?
Well,
or become a carpenter? I don't know.
It's a good question. There's something beautiful about food that I have an interest in. I had an interest in wine, and I did think about growing grapes because it excited me, the idea of learning about wine and drinking. We all like to drink, or many of us like to drink, and to be a connoisseur of something, to be good at something, is very inspiring, whether you want to be a boxer, whether you want to be a fireman, whether you want to grow blueberries. And so I did my homework. I knew that I could grow them. And then there's a risk. There's always a risk with a new business. The risk was the investment. This investment probably, if I look at it, was quite a lot of money, which I had because of my previous business in property. So I probably spent around £200,000 or £300,000 on the business. Now, not all business people, young business people, have got that money, Joe. But I'd come from a previous business that had been very fortunate in earning money. So I put this in, and then for the first 2, 3, 4 years, you don't earn any money with blueberries. And you get a lot of people saying, no one's grown blueberries around here on Dartmoor and made any money. Get a lot of that. But if you've done your research and you've worked your figures out, you really do have to keep to your plan. I certainly would advise that. And I did do that. And so it gradually grew, Joe, until we became a branded product. And we were selling to some of the largest distributors in the country.
How long did, so if you had an investment of 300,000 and so forth, did you feel it was a big risk, or was it a sunk cost that you were willing to take to do something you enjoyed?
I think for anyone, Joe, with £300,000, whether you have the money or whether you borrow the money, it's a fair amount of money to lose. And when you start a business and you spend that amount of money as an initial investment, you do have to be prepared to lose. It's a gamble, like so much of business is. There's very few businesses that at one stage or another, whether it's at the beginning, the middle, or the end, it becomes a gamble to continue. and one has to look at it every year or sometimes more often to see where you stand with that gamble on your business, and to be realistic and honest about it, not to carry on with something that's simply not going to work. Property worked for me before, but I came out because I thought it would collapse. I was actually wrong, but that was my decision I made. But primarily I came out because of wanting to do something that was a little bit more satisfying mentally and enjoyable physically.
Yeah.
Enjoy the countryside.
So what were the first steps when you were setting up this business? What were the requirements?
Okay.
You had a farm, and then you needed the plants, you needed a tractor.
Okay. Sure. You need machinery. You need to buy the product, which are the plants. You have to ensure they're the right plants. In our case, we got early blueberries, mid-season blueberries, and late-season blueberries. So we had 3-4 months when we can pick blueberries. We looked at that very carefully to ensure that they would grow on our land. And that was one of our most successful elements of the business, is preparation. Preparing the land, preparing for the right product to put into your land, and thereafter caring for them, even though, because they're so small, we were talking about plants that are several inches high, that will eventually grow to maybe 2 feet, 2, 3, 4.
How did you know the climate was good enough for these plants? I mean, many plants die in this climate, right? It's a bit cold, harsh. The winters, certainly they're not the same as the ones you get in tropical or Central America.
That's true. That's true. Well, there was an easy answer to that, and that is the Vaccinium myrtillus, which is probably the most common fruit on Dartmoor itself. It's called a whortleberry. It's a small plant that produces a berry, and it's part of the same family as blueberries. And this is, in fact, all over Dartmoor. It's only about maybe 6-7 inches high, so it's a very low living plant. Whereas blueberries, of course, can be 2 meters high, and the berries can be 4 or 5 times the size of the local whortleberry. That's all part of the same family. So yes, I was fairly confident that the acidic soil that they need was there.
Okay. And how many plants did you purchase?
That's a good question.
Or around?
Probably around about 50,000. But then we also produced our own plants as well, by various means.
Were you taking cuttings and then replanting them?
That type of thing, yes. Yes, thousands and thousands of cuttings.
So when you started doing the business, what things happened that you weren't expecting, or were things going to plan?
Well, Joe, as with many businesses, when you're producing a product, there were 2 things. One is checking there's a demand, but being able to grow the product, make the product, and then being able to sell it. 2 different jobs, and very important. And selling a product, when you start from zero and you're branding a product, does take a little time, takes a lot of effort, and you have to brush up on your skills with communication and dealing with a limited number of distributors, shops, etc., that want your product. So you don't want to make too many mistakes, and you have to get used to people saying no when you start out. You've got to keep on, and don't ever give up trying to sell your product if you know it's a good product and better than the other products, other blueberries, for example. In our case, we knew they were better because we were selling them fresh, whereas 95% of all blueberries come from abroad, at least 2 weeks old. and the quality is high. So we
And
knew
who was your first buyer?
we would sell to anyone to start off with, Joe. And this is
Who was
also
your
a
first
lesson.
buyer? Who was your first big buyer that you thought to yourself, wow, finally, if I feel like a businessman?
Yeah, it was a distributor in Torquay, and he was very keen on the product. We sold them to him, and I learned a hard lesson with him because he didn't pay us, or at least he didn't pay us the amount we agreed, and
Ah,
sometimes we would have to wait 4 or 5 months. So that was a hard lesson because we were so keen on selling,
yeah.
and we forgot about, hey, you've got to get the money in the bank as well. You can agree a
Wow.
lot of things, but until the money's actually in your bank. So we lost out there, and the harsh lesson is you do have to find reliable distributors who keep to agreements and
You
pay
had to
on.
trust the buyer.
When you start out, you are pretty keen. You can be very keen to almost to sell for less, sell your product for less, and perhaps to sell to not so reliable distributors
Hmm.
because you're so keen to get the business going.
Yeah.
Um, and
So
it's
your focus becomes just price rather than, I guess, the the communication, the delivery, the timing. You focus just
well,
on price to try and sell them.
it soon became obvious we couldn't compete with foreign imports because of labour costs are high in this country,
Hmm.
and because petrol costs, fuel costs, labour costs, storage costs, machinery, all this sort of thing is more expensive here than it is in a third world country.
Mhm.
Um, and so we're also picking by hand because of the terrain that we have, as opposed to using machinery to pick them for us. So I soon realized that we had to brand the product and not try and compete with mass production. We had to look at the product being a special product that was higher quality and would remain at a higher cost throughout.
Something
Um,
unique.
Something unique, something special. Um, and so we focused it on being one of the highest quality, perhaps the highest quality blueberry sold in the country. And we were never going to sell it for under a certain premium price.
Okay.
And we said about that after this first exposure to being ripped off by canny distributors who weren't happy to pay us. Um,
Wow.
but we soon found out, Joe, that the product was in demand,
Mhm.
um, and it's not like potatoes or tomatoes that can be grown almost anywhere. It is unique insofar as it needs a special soil and does need certain care that, given the right training, you can learn how to do. And so within about 4 years, we were beginning to make a little bit of money after about the fourth year because the plants are growing. Each year they grow bigger and bigger. And the first 2 years, we simply took the flowers off the plant in order to let the roots of the plant grow more. So
Mhm.
this makes the plant grow a bit more quickly. So you're not getting any money and you're putting more labor costs into it initially.
Yeah.
And I think it's all these initial costs that put a lot of people off this type of business. So you do have to keep yourself
Motivated.
motivated and believe in yourself. And I would say this about any business. If you're starting a slightly unique business and running against the grain of imports and things like that, is that you do have to watch price, understand price, and load your product as a higher quality product because it's very hard to compete on any food stuff because of the cheapness that we can get them from abroad. And that's the way we did it.
You
And
saw the light at the end of the tunnel.
We
And
did.
you aim
And
for it.
it wasn't the only way we did it, not just branding, but also we used a type of labour that was slightly unusual. We used volunteers, whereas they may not be professional pickers. They were keen to stay on the farm, enjoy the ambience of a national park. And maybe we would take them out different places so they would enjoy life out in the countryside.
Mhm.
And in return, they would work for a certain number of hours a day. So this lessened our labour costs and made them more compatible
Okay.
with competition.
And then when would you say the blueberry business peaked? When did it reach a boom?
The peak probably came when one of the largest distributors, organic distributors in the country, whose door we've been knocking on for some time, I must add, actually one of the head directors bought some of our blueberries in a shop in Teignmouth. He liked them and phoned me up and asked me to come in and see him, and said he wanted to buy these blueberries if he could from us, which we did. After that, we were selling tons and tons and
How
tons.
did it happen? Is it word of mouth that he heard of you and he said, "Hey, he's reliable. We can trust him"?
We were already selling them via. We'd already got 3 or 4 small distributors by then, but they were small ones. We were selling maybe 1 or 2 tons or something like that a year. And then when Riverfoot Organics saw our product banded about and it was organic, they wanted a little bit of that, because they were importing quite a lot of their blueberries from Spain. So it made sense for them to use a local producer. So it went well for both of us. And so we peaked. And it got to a point, Joe, where we couldn't supply enough. We just got more and more staff. We got more and more blueberries until we had 30 acres. And it just became bigger than I imagined. I would say in some respects that, like all businesses, it's hard work. It's not easy. But it's something satisfying about creating your own little business, your own empire. I don't mean in a big sense of the word, but creating something from nothing that people love, genuinely love,
And what
become addicted to it. It's an art. It's almost an art form.
did you come up with other businesses, other products on the side? I think I remember you saying soap and wine, juice.
Well, we did try. We tried with juices, with pies, and this kind of thing. But what we found was the markup profit on fresh blueberries is good compared to other products, other byproducts from blueberries. And also we were unsure whether we really wanted to grow over a certain point. Now, I know that in business, one likes to think that one's going to carry on growing and growing and growing. But in my view, Joe, there is a point where, from my personal point of view, I was already not in the field anymore. I was in the office dealing with invoices, delivery, chasing invoices, all this kind of thing, dealing with schedules and this sort of thing. And
you were managing things,
and
planning, organizing.
Yeah, literally on the phone all the time, and dealing with workers coming in, feeding them. We were like a hotel as well. So
wow.
it for a small business like our own, I wouldn't say it's a big business, but it's a unique business. But there's a point where, in our case, we didn't want to be over 30 acres of blueberries or produce over a certain number of tons or have greater business.
More market share.
No, we didn't want a greater market share. simply because it was very difficult to do, getting the labour in from volunteers. We were already getting 30, 40 just volunteers. And of course, we had full part-time workers as well. But you get such a crowd that, from our point of view on a farm, unlike saying, well, you can get another factory, make more. On a farm is limited space, and where you can keep people and accommodation is limited. So from our point of view, we did max out. We maxed out as far as we wanted to go, and the income was very, very, for what we were doing, we were very happy with it.
What about what are the main challenges? Like what were the main challenges throughout this whole process of selling the business, growing the business, and then so what would be the main reasons for you to sort of take a step back and be like, okay, look, I want to try something else, or tell me about the difficulties.
I think all of us, when we're young, we have dreams of wanting to do things. And I don't think that we're all made just to do one thing, Joe. That's my opinion. And I haven't just done one thing. I haven't just become a banker or a farmer or a businessman. I like to do different things. I enjoy many different things, as you know. It's sometimes not so easy to be good at many things. So that is the downside of it. But I suppose...
What was the main challenge? Like if you had to put a point in it, is it communication because the business gets too big? Is it because it's hard to manage and also lead at the same time because you have to deal with so many things? You can't really see where the business is going anymore.
Yes. It's when it's in your own farm, there's a certain invasion of people. And I never seen what I do in the strict sense of the word as a business. Certainly this wasn't. This was something I was doing.
A way of life.
As a way of life, as an enjoyable way of life, as a counter part to property business that in some respects I felt ashamed about because I was ruthless. Whereas in this case, I was nice. I could be nice. I could produce something that was great. And everybody liked me. I felt that people who worked for me got on well. It was very difficult to like a Mr. Blueberry. It's something that is something very satisfying. It's just that, yes, that in all businesses, there's a point where you either delegate to other staff and make it grow, or if you don't want it to, you have to stop it at a certain point. And there's also, Joe, and more importantly, that many young businessmen forget, is that satisfaction about, we start playing guitars because we want to play guitars. We start listening to music because we like the sound. Well, I started Blueberries because I wanted to grow blueberries. Actually, when you don't want to listen to music anymore, or you don't want to play the guitar anymore, you stop. You don't carry on. And it's the same in business too. If it becomes a chore or repetitive, and some elements of it was repetitive, then why not try something else? If you're in a position to do so. And now, of course, we have retired almost from the blueberry business. And I have other interests, so I'm going into another phase. Because I'm physically also not what I was. And farming is a physical job as well.
If you were to give some advice to young people that they're going to go into their first job, that are thinking about just starting business, right? Yeah. What to expect? What is hard work? You've gone through it all. What bits of advice, if you could give some simple advice to a young entrepreneur, what would it be?
That's a good question. Deal with your personality. really think about your own personality. There's no point in being a pop star if you're shy and you can't go on a stage on your own. There are many things that you shouldn't do, and you have to be honest with yourself about what you can and can't do, first thing. Secondly, you do have to have a passion. I think secretly we all perhaps do, no matter what we do have something burning somewhere. And if one, for example, wants to be rich, then why not work for a rich person? Learn from them how to do it. Don't think you know it after 1, 2, 3, even 4 years. Work at it day and night and hard. It's like an athlete. They have to work at it every day. And it's the same with any business. You do have to put that work in. And it's the hardest time when you're young, because you simply don't have all the answers to do business when you're very young. It does take a few years of hard work, and work for the right people. Don't take any job. If you want to learn about money, then get into that industry and go straight working for the man who's going to teach you the most, the quickest.
Okay. And then to wrap up, Rob, with the current circumstance, what do you think is going to happen to businesses? Who's going to serve, especially the farming sector? You know so much about the this sort of organic sector. What are your predictions?
Well, it's a very interesting time now. And despite the fact that a lot of the large companies, corporations are losing staff, there are always opportunities for young people when there is a problem in the country. When there's a problem, there's an opportunity to provide answers. So if we need masks, there's an opportunity, for example, to make masks. I'm not saying you do that, but I'm just indicating how problems create business. The farming industry, like any other, will suffer. Most corporate businesses will suffer unless they're actually in the health industry. But as individuals, we should learn to seek out various ways of earning money or passions that we've got. If it's business, pure business, one can look at what is going to be the next thing that the ordinary person can do. That's you as young people can do, not just the rich man can do because he's got money. So what you can do at the start with nothing, no money, how can you get from that point to get money? There are a number of options here, and a lot of them are revolved around technology, having apps, providing a service to people online, and there's a great opportunity there. I think there is an opportunity in providing various, even health services, well-being services that people require. There's all manner of things, actually, Joe, that are opening up for young people who want to get into businesses.
Yeah, as long as they're motivated, as long as they can see that sort of light at the end of the tunnel and see that problems are not necessarily a problem, but it's an option to provide a solution. Oh, yes. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for your time, for your wisdom, and for your wealth of experience. I'm sure anybody watching this video is going to find it very insightful. And I hope to visit you someday in the farm soon.
Well, you must come down. Look forward to it.
All right, Rob. Take care. See you.